Om Namo Narayana, Om Namah Shivaya, Shivam, Shivoham, Om. Welcome to another satsang with your host, Chuck the Yogi from the Yogi Cave. I want to apologize for my last video. Apparently my little microphone kind of went out on me, so I'm going to have to look into a better quality microphone, but for the time being I got a little extra here, so hopefully you can hear what I say. And I'm wearing the Tibetan red right now as we move into the autumn equinox and it's starting to get chilly in the Yogi Cave, and by the winter solstice I'll be wearing my Tibetan gray yak wool shawl because these are awesome. I can't recommend these enough. Anyway, let's get to where we were last. I'll pull it up here. I believe it's 2.16. Hiyam dukkam anagatam. So that which is to be overcome is sorrow yet to come. So going back to the Buddha's Four Noble Truths, what he discovered 2,500 years ago, his first noble truth was that life is sorrowful. And so Patanjali is kind of going from there and stating that the purpose of yoga is to overcome sorrow yet to come, because there's this movement, this wheel of samsara, that, as explained by Patanjali earlier, creates this action and reaction with no escape from the matrix and whatnot. And so what we want to do is to move from circles into spirals and spiral our way out of the matrix. At least that's the purpose of yoga, to move in to the labyrinth and kill the Minotaur and get the hell out of the labyrinth following Ariadne's golden thread. This is the ultimate purpose of yoga, as explained by Patanjali. Yoga with a capital Y, of course. So the purpose of it is to overcome future sorrow, to break that cycle, basically. The ultimate cycle. Not just the cycle of addiction or anything like that. The ultimate cycle. Alright, so 2.17. Drashtri Drishayoho Samyoho Hiya Hetuho. Correlation between the seer, the self with a capital S, and the seen, nature, is the cause of that which is to be overcome. So again, Patanjali relies on the Samkhya philosophy, talking about the dichotomy between Purusha and Prakriti, or spirit and nature, or the little self and the big self, or the 5% and the 95%. So we're talking about here that correlation between the small self and the big self, that nescience that is created as a misidentification of this little self, of this me, as this permanent thing. Yoga, the purpose of yoga is to overcome that mistaken correlation and to enhance the correlation between the little self and the big self, between the I and the I am. So ultimately this is what Patanjali is getting to here. 2.18. Prakasha Kriya Stitis Shilam Bhutta Indriya Atmakam Bhoga Apavarga Artham Drishyam. Seen, nature, has the character of brightness, activity, and inertia. It is embodied in elements and sense organs, and it serves the dual purpose of enjoyment and emancipation. So again, we're getting into the Samkhya philosophy, and we're getting into not only the two primary states of nature, which is that which is formed and that which is unformed, right? But also we're getting into the different states of that nature. So we start dealing with three primary constituents of nature, or states of nature, which is sattva, which is classified as the color white and signifies a rarefied state in nature, positive. And then we have rajas, which is red in color and signifies activity. So that would be, and then we have black, which is tamas, and that signifies torpor, or the negative side of nature. So we could really classify white as neutral, and then we can put, these are arbitrary, we can put rajas as positive and tamas as negative. So negative, positive, neutral, positive, negative, three constituents of nature. So this is all based on the Samkhya philosophy, which I'm not going to get into, but Patanjali is basically saying this is the nature of the construct that we live in. So he's breaking the construct down into parts to make them understandable. 2.19 Vishesha Avishesha Linga Matra Alingani Guna Parvani. The levels of the primary constituents are the particularized, the unparticularized, the differentiate, and the undifferentiate. So we have Vishesha, Avishesha, Linga, and Alinga. So these are the substrata of those three primary constituents or states of matter. So unparticularized is the field on which is based all reality, if you want to use a scientific lingo. And the particularized is that which can be smashed in the Hadron Collider. All these particles, protons, neutrinos, quarks, and all these other things that they manage to break apart, right? Because that's the Western way of doing things. You smash them together and you figure out the pieces, right? But that's only 5% of the construct. What about the other 95%? So this is what he's getting into. And so we have the differentiated and the undifferentiated. So again, we're going back to what I call the 5-95% rule, which is 5% is your conscious mind, that which falls within the margin of error, matter, that which can be measured, and then we have the 95%, which represents the subconscious, the unconscious, as well as that which is dark matter, dark energy, the unknown, and possibly utterly unknowable. This is what we're talking about here, Patanjali in particular. So then we have 2.20, Drashta, Drishi, Matraha, Shudopi, Paradhyaya, Anupashyaha. The seer, which is the sheer power of seeing, although pure, apperceives the presented ideas. So with this, we're getting into my theory of consciousness, a working model of consciousness, which has perception as a primary constituent. And the reason for that is broken down by Patanjali himself. He's saying that the power of seeing and the seer, and this confusion between the seer and the seeing, is what creates this false correlation that I am, the little self, the me, is the seer that is doing these things, right? So this shows the power of perception. When you think about the double slit experiment and the implications of that, which I'm not going to get into, when you think about the fact that in science, double-blind experiments are used because if the experimentee knows the nature of the experiment, he changes the outcome of the experiment. When you understand the implications of that, then you can understand the implications of not only what Patanjali is saying, but what I say in my working model of consciousness, and why perception is so fundamental to understand this construct, this playground that we live in. And by understanding that playground, that labyrinth, you can find your way out of it, following Ariadne's golden thread after you kill the Minotaur, which is our false sense of ourselves. Anyway, that's a lot to mull over, so I'm going to leave it there. Om Namo Narayana, Om Namo Shivaya, Shiva Om, Shiva Hum, Om Jai Ma, Jai Mahakal. Till next time, happy autumn equinox to you all.